start with explaining about the rig.
Okay, so we have a TS5 rig, which is from Reality in LA, and we're using two Red Epic cameras with this rig. This was actually same configurations that a few Hollywood films have used: The Hobbit, Spider-Man 4, which will be released next year. What we have at the moment is we're shooting with.
What are the movies you've done?
Okay, so I've been doing 3D for about 4 to 5 years. Only recently the big films have started coming into London. So earlier this year I did VFX Unit Prometheus, and I also did C Camera Main Unit Jack the Giant Killer. Both films are due to be released next year. In addition to that, I've done loads of smaller things. The budgets for bigger movies in 3D are just sort of coming around, really, since Avatar. This year in the States, obviously Peter Jackson in New Zealand is doing The Hobbit. There's Spider-Man 4 going on, Tron's being shot, Ronin 47, all really big budgets movies, all in 3D. So in the UK at the moment, I mean, there's lower budget movies going on. The higher budget movies you only tend to see sort of 2 or 3 going at the moment. The first big one was Hugo Cabaret, which happened a couple of years ago with Martin Scorsese. That was with a PACE system though. In terms of Reality, they have been getting their own gigs as well, and they're running fair share of the market at the moment.
Yeah, how 3D is working out for the first 3D film in Telugu?
Okay, so I came over in October to start working on this Telugu movie with NTR, and back then sort of nobody really understood how 3D works. It's a whole completely different ballgame to shooting normal films or commercials or anything like that. It takes a lot more preparation time, it takes a lot more testing, you need to be a lot more precise with the equipment, and it was sort of a new language to everybody when I came over. The camera guys we've been teaching have really picked up everything very fast, actually. So we've been, we started off quite slow. We started off pretty slow. We kind of picked up the pace and sort of, we're shooting, we're getting our shots in. One of the things with 3D, when you shoot, you really need to bear that in mind when you actually plan your shots. Something to be done with the DOP, the director, so you don't have any confliction when you actually shoot when you actually get to set, etc. So a good thing with these guys is they're very easily adaptable as well. So we if there's something's not going to work, we change it. We talk about it. If we need to change angles, if we need to change lenses, if we need to go from another approach, they do take that on board, and they do tend to listen. Hopefully, once this is over with, and people start seeing that Telugu movies can be made in 3D, to start picking up the pace, and more films will be shot in 3D. Generally, they say when you shoot 3D, the general term was it takes 20% more time and money than to shoot conventional 2D pictures. Obviously, we're shooting 2 cameras on a rig, so it's double the amount of footage which are matching. It's more time to set up a shot. You have to align the camera before you get into position and you start shooting. When you change lenses, things can go wrong. If one camera goes down, your entire camera's gone down. And it could just be a small glitch, but it has to be fixed. And it has to be fixed to the point where it matches the other camera, otherwise you still can't shoot 3D. So these might look like little details, but they actually do stop production from shooting. The whole 20% thing, with the right resources, with the right equipment, the right people, the right time, the right money, you can get away with 20% extra. Usually it's not the case, it's a lot more than that. You get it, like I said, if you have one problem with a rig, it's cost production an hour's worth of shooting, they have to try and get an hour's worth of shooting back. Because we're trying to match the 2 cameras together, you might not have fully matching left and right eyes, as they call it. So you might have to do some extra work in post-production for it. Realignments in post-production, colour matching in post-production, the whole different things you have to do. Again, when you shoot as well, when you going back to picking your shots, you can't do fast pans all the time. They just don't seem to work. There's too much information for the brain to take in. A music promo is actually a very good example. Too many fast cuts don't seem to work. The human eyes and the brain don't actually like to process that information that fast. It gives them headaches. And when you shoot, you have to bear in mind what you're projecting on. If it's the big screen, you have to make sure that the 3D you're making will be adequate for the big screen, because the bigger the screen, the better the 3D is going to be. So regarding this project, I was invited by NTR Arts to come on board and do this project. It was actually the first 3D project, they told me, in India, which actually turned out, was my misunderstanding, turned out to be Tollywood, which I didn't know existed. I only thought it was the Bollywood cinema film industry here in India. Tollywood was, in fact, obviously, this is obviously their first feature film in 3D, and they didn't really know anything about 3D, so they just saw some films and thought, okay, we should make our next project in 3D. So I came over, sat down, had a chat with the guys, and they sort of started to realize quickly how much more time you needed, how much more preparation you needed, how much more responsibility the technical guys have to take to deliver a 3D picture. So okay.
Indian film experience, the production.
So I had a chat quite recently with the hero of this film, Kalyan Ram, who actually said that most Tollywood filmmakers don't tend to spend so much money and time on technical values in a feature film. They tend to, NTR themselves tend to go a bit further, try something new every single time, and do put more effort into the technical values of a film. So, which is a great thing. Somebody needs to take the leap, and hopefully the rest will follow. So that's what we're trying to achieve right now. I believe that once this film is over and people can see exactly what Tollywood filmmakers are capable of doing, that more feature films will start getting into production and start shooting. Coming over here has been an interesting experience. It's kind of like shooting when I started doing sort of home movies. It was really strange, and then you kind of work your way up and start, if you're lucky enough in the West, start working with some professional guys and stuff. And when I came here, it wasn't that they weren't professional, it's just they didn't know anything about 3D, they weren't educated enough. At the time, nobody had taught them. So it took a bit of time to do that, but they learned very fast. The NTR especially, they tend to listen when you need something, when you want something. If they don't understand, they ask you to explain, and they'll do everything they can to actually make sure that you can get what you want. And obviously, they're making a movie, and they have to make it as best as possible. And the only way you can do that is if you have the right people and the right equipment, and you put the effort into it, put a lot of passion into it.
Yeah.
Ready?
It was quite funny a few years ago when I started, 4 or 5 years ago when I started getting into 3D. All my friends were film guys. They didn't take the whole 3D thing on board quite well. They actually started making fun of me, saying 3D whatever, it's going to die, it's not going to pick up, it's this and that. And in a short space of time, literally 2 or 3 years, there's so many big companies around the world who are actually now making feature films in 3D. We're getting 3D channels, and there's so many projects out there. It's actually really, really amazing to see so much 3D out there. The way it's kind of revolutionized, I tend to tell a lot of my friends and people that I meet that we don't watch black and white films anymore. Black and white TV doesn't exist for us in the modern age. It's the same thing with sort of 3D. Kids growing up to watch 3D cartoons in cinemas, playing 3D computer games. When they, 3D will become normal to them, like color and sound is to us. Not black and white and mute. So, if it will get to the point, 2 things will happen. It will either become normal, and because everything we see is 3D, it'll either become normal, or it might die again. But this time round, I'm seeing so much more 3D than I did when I was a kid, that I think 3D is here to stay, definitely here to stay. NTR made a very, very good move by making the first feature film in Tollywood. When this movie is released in the cinemas and people go to see it, they're going to have a great experience watching it, and it'll be because of NTR.
Good. And sir?
Okay.
With 3D being a completely different language with filmmaking, some people may not have the patience or the tolerance to adapt to this idea of filmmaking. NTR Arts here in Tollywood started the revolution for 3D filmmaking, so my hat's off to Hari Krishna. This revolution of 3D filmmaking will spread all throughout Tollywood, and from a few years from now, if I am correct, the entire Tollywood film industry may well start going 3D as the norm. This rig, which has come all the way from Los Angeles, is made by a company called Reality. They have really themselves advanced and revolutionized the way we shoot 3D. They've simplified things, they've made things quicker, they've made 3D a lot more accurate so that you can spend less time with the technical jargon and actually spend more time being creative, which is exactly what filmmaking is all about. And the older rigs that you see, it's very precise in giving you 3D, and it can give you, it can adapt to shooting in many different environments. So we've got a couple of Red Epic cameras here, which is exactly what Peter Jackson has used, and also obviously the Spider-Man guys and a couple of other films out there. NTR kind of heard that happened and wanted to kind of create similar quality of a movie, so they went for what is the best out there right this second.